Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Now, courtesy of PulitzerOpal, we have today on the cutting block, let's not get his business card all dirty, this little offcut here. Now, you guys know that I'm a huge fan of Pulitzer, all of you should be as well. One of the things he does that is really interesting is a lot of the time, see, look at this slither, it's a fairly small slice. He's gone through the effort of slicing this off rather than just grinding it off on the wheels. This would take seconds to get through on the wheels, but instead he's just sliced it off and he does that and he gives it away. It's all, it's very good. It's just saving a little bit more. Not typical for your standard cabber. They kind of churn through a lot of material and burn a lot of it away. But not our man Pulitzer. So he has sent over this piece, a couple other pieces as well. But this is a really good example of what you can do if you just take that little extra time and effort to slice rather than just grind it off on the sintered diamond wheel. So now, though Pulitzer's not going to do it himself, I'll do it instead. And we're going to fashion this one into a nice little stone, probably going to be a fairly decent pendant piece. All we need to do is I'm going to choose to get rid of a bit of this tapered edge because it does get too thin. So it's going to be brought back to here somewhere, and then maybe we go for a bit of a teardrop kind of shape, just round off this bottom edge here as well. It's already got a perfectly flat back. And even if this wasn't an offcut, you always should think about doing this kind of stone where you've got the color bars along the edge this way, so the cross cut. Normally we would just cut along here and try to expose something like this, but it's a little bit jelly. And if you do that and you expose it, a lot of the time the color just disappears. Or just doesn't face very well. Standard Mintabie stuff. But every now and then, it is worth just thinking about doing a crosscut and just leaving this as the face of the stone. So we'll be doing this with carving, as per usual, and I'm going to use this as the center line. I really like that band of color just down the middle. And from there, that's going to help us. I'm not even going to stencil it in. I'm just going to use that as the point, and it's really just drawn out the shape for us already. We'll keep the bottom edge because it is the fat edge. And we'll just bring in the sides a little bit to get rid of these inclusions. So, sintered diamonds, Nova points, cerium oxide. Let's do it. Bin it up. We're going to start with the 120 grit sintered diamond. I don't want to go all the way to 80 just because this end was a little bit thin and it would absolutely obliterate it. This is a little more gentle. Not much, but enough to not shatter things too quickly. And I've labeled this as very rough shaping. It's particularly rough because you're not going to want to set your final shape with this. It barely is even shaping. Really, it's just inclusion removal and just trimming off any of the sections you don't want. Just that rough grinding. You're still shaping because you want it kind of accurate. You want to be heading in the right direction whenever you're carving, because carving takes so much longer. You need to make sure that every step you're heading towards where you want to get. So have a picture in your mind when you start. Just like in this one, it might change because I was originally thinking teardrop and I pivoted from that, as you'll see very soon. But always have an end goal in mind and just go towards it, change if you really need to. Here I'm just working on these inclusions, but because they're on the side, I'm not overly worried about them because I'll bezel set this stone one day in the future. And now you can see I've put in a little stencil curve. Now how I do this, because I don't have a pill-shaped stencil, I'll either use a circle or in this case, a large oval, and I'll just sit it in there and then just drop it down and use the thickness of the curve of the stencil to just pencil my mark in there. And you'll get a nice little curve. You just got to make sure that the center point is in the center point of your stone at both ends, and then you're good to go. And then you're just drawing imaginary straight lines down both sides to link them up, though they don't have to be straight. You can do whatever you want. And then I've switched over to the 600 grit sintered diamond. This is when you're doing the shaping, the fine shaping, really tuning it. It's a lot slower, it's a lot more gentle. You're not going to chip very often. So just go through and shape it up. Here I'm spending most of my time just on these edges, straightening up the side edges and just working on the face a little bit. I'm not going to do too much on the face of this one because I like the natural organic kind of shape that it's in, even though it's already been cut into this kind of slice. So I'm just going to keep it the way I had it. It's a bit bulbous towards one end, but I don't want to flatten it out completely and remove all of that stone. I want to really experiment with some creative settings, and this one will be one of those. So once those are all gone, the number one most important thing is to nick off these little edges. They are pretty sharp. You'll see here I'm just going around all of them. There's definitely no chance for you to miss any of these because you'll feel it. It's basically glass. The opal is like glass. So you will feel those sharp edges. Don't cut yourself on them, but they will catch your finger quite easily. So just feel around, make sure they're all gone. The 280 grit Nova will thank you because it'll wear fast enough already. You don't need it to hit a sharp edge. That will deform your burr really quickly. So number one most important thing when you're carving, just get rid of those edges. If there's one thing you take away from the video, just no edges before you go to Novas. The resin is pretty soft. And now here you can see them. I won't go into them too much, but 280, 600, 1200 and 3000, and then my little cerium oxide. Cerium oxide was the choice for this one. I would use the aluminium oxide, and the aluminium oxide will work if you want to purchase it, but the cerium oxide is just really good for the silica based stones. The hydrated silica is where the cerium oxide really kicks in with the chemical mechanical polishing that I've talked about on the channel 100 times. There is one detailed video on it. I can link that in the description if you really want. But it is definitely the way to go if you're mostly polishing opal. And I say that because sometimes with boulder opal, you're more ironstone than opal. So in that case, you want to go Alox, but this one, Ceox, is perfectly fine. And yeah, that'll get you a nice shiny stone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of another one. We've got this nice little pill-shaped one. I decided to go the pill-shaped instead of the teardrop all of a sudden, just because it became thicker much faster than I thought. So it really tapered off hard towards that end. And once I got thick enough, I realized, you know what, it'll be looking a bit better with a pill shape. And hopefully my little tip there with the stencil and how I get this kind of pill shape, because I don't have a stencil that does this shape. And I just use a really large kind of oval. And that gives you that nice curve. You can also use circles, but the circles give you more of the, it gives you a semicircle at the top. Unless you just use an edge of it and then you get a nice little curve. Either way, it can work. I prefer to use a big oval, and they seem to give me a nice curve that I'm looking for. You can see here, it's a nice little laser striped show of color. Really cool. It's really not a bad thing to do this with Mintabie Opal in particular. But it does yield a nice face. Every now and then, if you targeted for this jellyish color bar in the middle, you would find that once you got it, it would probably most likely not face. If this stone turned out worse, I would have done a really thin slice down there to show you that. But because it's turned out pretty well, I'm going to keep it. There's also a couple inclusions that I've left. So if you look here, there's one line in particular. So this is the stone, top, bottom, whatever you want to call it, where the crust was sitting. A lot of the time when the layers of this opal forms in Mintabie, you get a lot of inclusions in some of the layers. Now this layer right here is one of them. And if I pop up a picture of what's inside the stone, you can see there's stuff all in here. So if you keep carving away and you try to get rid of one spot, you'll most likely yield another one just below it. The good thing is that this one you could see all of that. So I managed to just settle for when there's the least amount of inclusion in the face. So there's just a couple spots, and a lot of the other ones, like this here on the side, is just going to be hidden by the bezel setting that I'm going to set this one into sometime in the future. So you'll only be seeing this face part anyway, which is a really nice face. It's a much better stone, and this is just from an offcut. So it just goes to show, instead of just grinding away a lot of your edges that you don't want, maybe just give them a slice. Just give them a quick slice. It really doesn't take long. Sure, with the Dremel it takes a bit longer, but if you've got a trim saw, it's really fast and really effective, and you can actually get little stones like this. It's really worth being careful and just really salvaging anything you can from opal. It's such a great stone. There's really no reason to waste it if you don't have to. Literally a trash to treasure kind of scenario. Could have been ground to dust, but instead Pulitzer sliced it, sent it over here, and I've managed to get what will become a really nice pendant stone. Very uneven, but I've talked to someone that does a lot of custom freeform jewelry setting for opal in particular, and it's actually not too bad, but the way it's done is actually really clever. So hopefully I'll show that on the channel. But it's actually not as difficult as you'd think to be able to tackle a stone like this, where the bezel will be higher up here and then lower down here. I just really need to get all the tools and stuff sorted out for that, and then I'll be right on it. But the other quick note that I'll make is that Mintabie polishes really well. I've probably just put fingerprints all over it, and I can already see that I've left some marks, but it does polish incredibly well. I think it's because it's slightly harder than your Kuba Pedy. It all polishes well, but Kuba Pedy in comparison to Mintabie I think the hardness of the Mintabie just gives it an edge in terms of how easy it is to finish. But I mean, the process is the same. We're still going sintered diamonds into novas into cerium oxide, and we've ended up with a shiny stone, which is what we want. But on that note, I'm gonna seal this one up, maybe in the cool little case that Pulitzer sent over a lot of the stones in. Now I found a supplier for these, so I'm gonna get in touch and see if the factory can pump me out a whole bunch of them, because I wanna use these for basically just storing some of the opals that I wanna keep track of. I like to be able to see through the case. I've got a lot of opal storage containers at the moment, and they're not overly safe for the opal compared to this, and they're also just not see-through. So this is a huge difference. It's a massive game changer. So I want to get a whole bunch of these, and because I'm getting so many, I'll probably chuck whatever I'm not going to use up on the website. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, they're really cool. It's just got these nice 2 little sheets of cling wrap that just suspends the stone in midair, so I can shake it around, no rattling. They don't slide into each other, so if you put 2 stones right next to each other, they won't rub against each other or anything. It's really cool. It's my discovery of the week. But the week has ended, and so has this video, so I'll catch you in the next one. Have fun, good luck hunting stones.